gurus are talking, philosophers are talking, scientists are talking about a variety of things. And the big question they always have is there God or is there no God? Did man create God anthropologically, right? Because we needed somebody. Or is there a real God that created the entire creation that we see, universe and beyond, multidimensional? So is there such a thing? They debate that, okay? Where scientists say, show me the proof and then I'm ready to accept it. Until that, I cannot accept it, okay? That's the human intelligence. The philosophers are basically saying that what is the purpose of life? What does it all mean? If we create anything, does it mean anything? Or should we just run through life? It is what it is. A lot of big questions. A lot of questions, right? They're not saying, show me the proof. They're just using some logic, some philosophy to still ask the questions, okay? And the spiritual guys are making declarations saying that this is how it is in the scriptures. Therefore, have faith, believe. That's it, okay? Otherwise, you're going straight to hell. That's basically what many of the religious and spiritual teachers are saying in one way or another way. So you got the two people who are, they're all making declarations, of course, but some of them have more questions and they leave it open. Other people are making declarations. And the reason why I'm starting with this is because all the people that we're talking about here, okay? All the talkers, I call them, all the talkers haven't seen the ocean. They have not seen the real water of the ocean. They're asking for proof. They're asking for this, that, and the other thing. They haven't gone swimming in the ocean. They don't know anything about it. They're just talking about it. Is there an ocean? Is there not an ocean? It reminds me of that story that my father used to tell, okay? Sant Keshavadas. That story is of the frog that was born and grew up inside of a small well, okay? And hasn't seen anything outside of that well. And so maybe a few other frog friends of his, they talk about whether there's something outside the well or not. It's just theory at that point. They're just thinking, is there something outside? Is there a thing or not? And some of them conclude there's nothing out there, okay? This is it. The well is all there is. It's obvious. We can see it. There's clear proof. This is all there is. So we're done, okay? Show me the proof that those frogs in the well cannot show. Therefore, there's no proof. So I'm good with this, okay? The well is all there is. We live here, we die here, and we make our discoveries here. There's nothing outside. So that's where they are. A lot of theoretical things. And then one day, from a distant pond, big lake, I should say, right? There was a frog that came in and jumped into the well. This frog has seen other things. He's seen the world, basically. Of course, he's from a different lake, a big lake, not just the well. He jumps in and he tries to tell them, he hears this whole debate about how the well is basically everything, there's nothing else out there. And no matter what this other lake frog is trying to tell the other frogs, maybe 1 in 1,000 frogs, 1 in 1,000,000 frogs, really even pays attention to him, much less listen, right? They're all busy with their own things. But the lake frog says, there is a world outside. I am from there. I have seen it. All my family is there, right? There's a big, big, big world out there, outside of this well. Nobody wants to listen. But they're writing books. on their philosophy, they're making YouTube videos and whatnot. Everybody's got their theory, but they have not seen what's outside of the well. Okay? So finally, for those who would listen, the frog from the lake somehow finds a way to have some of those frogs follow him outside of the well and shows what's out there. and they're overwhelmed. They cannot, they're speechless. And they immediately become disciples of that lake frog, saying that, yes, what he was saying was true. Right? So this is the story. It's a metaphor or a simile, if you want to call it that, of all the debaters out there. They're all full of questions on the things that are unknowable unless you get out there and explore it yourself. They cannot be known. If you're sitting in the well, it cannot be known. So this one of the things that my father talked about all the time is what we are after as seekers of spirituality cannot be. This is declared in the Upanishads, in the Bhagavad Gita, right? And in the Vedas in general, and in all the spiritual writings of India. What we are looking to see is beyond our intellect. It is beyond our senses. Right? So in other words, it's beyond the well. So we can go on writing books, we can go on asking questions, we can do all these things, but it's ultra clear to me, having done a lot of studying and reflection and listening to my father's programs all throughout my life, and as a grown adult to listen to it again and again, it is very, very, very clear that we are stuck in that well and we are not ready to hear anything else, because it has to make intellectual sense to us. Right? As soon as you fall into that trap, you're not going to be able to see beyond the well itself. Okay? So let me get into it. So what I have written down, the whole debate thing and the whole questioning and this and that. I'm not asking for blind faith, but those who keep on talking, this way and that way and that way and this way, right? Whole lot of chatter. They haven't seen anything. If they see it and they experience it firsthand, all those questions fall off immediately because they know firsthand. So that's what it is. So all the chatterboxes out there, they haven't seen anything. Remember that, okay? Because these are not perceptible with the tools that we have here. You have to go inside. And you have to go beyond the mind and the ego, which is why there is such a thing called mantra. Mananat trayate iti mantra. Mantra means a key phrase that will take you or beyond, that will help you to transcend the mind and the ego and so on. That's why it's called a mantra. That's the tool given so that you can have the first-hand experience. So these are the points I was thinking of as to what I have heard growing up. He said the purpose of life is to realize that all this is God, or God realization. Okay? That God is in everything at the smallest level, all the way to the biggest level, is the cause of everything, and is the support for the entire creation. That includes us. So whenever we feel lost and we have to make big decisions, and we start to get into anxiety and worry and afraid and this and that, we have to understand that God is the support for the entire creation, including us. Okay? That means we can depend on God. So I'll come to that in a minute. It is His will that makes anything happen. All right? So this is all based on first-hand accounts of my father. This is how he lived, as you all know. Those who lived around him, you know that that is what he practiced. It is not something that he just talked about. He actually practiced the fact that God is in everything, is the cause of everything, that He supports everything. Okay? All right. So now the second point is God is within us, and that we must realize that we are part of Him. In other words, God is a part of us and we are part of Him. So that's the oneness philosophy, right? So without God, we couldn't exist, right? So we must recognize His holy presence in everything and in everyone as we move through life. So what happens here is that when we don't realize that God is in everything, remember our tradition of Namaste, right? Namaste or Namaskara is not to actually look at somebody's face and body and ego and say Namaste to that. It's actually seeing the holy presence of God, okay, the sacredness of God in their heart, recognizing that God is in everyone. We say Namaste. and they say it back to us. It should not be mechanical. Whenever we do this, we should mean it. Okay? So namaste or namaskara means I recognize that God within you and I bow down to that God. That's what it means. Okay? That's a practice, ancient practice, continued to this day. And it works especially well when you cannot shake hands due to the pandemic. But don't just do this and leave. You have to think every time you do this that I recognize God in everything and in everyone. And namaste to that God. That's what it is. So when we know about His holy presence, we can do no wrong. Right? When you know that God is everywhere and watching over our thoughts and our actions, we tend to behave. We can do no wrong. The very fact that you recognize that God is everywhere purifies you. So it's a beautiful thing. And so this is part of His core teachings. Okay? Third, let us serve God in everything we do. Okay? Remember we said God is everywhere and in everything. Let's recognize that and let's serve God in every single thing we do. We're doing this now, right? This satsang here. That should be considered as a service to God. Why? Because we are remembering Him and we are offering this session as a service. But after this, we go upstairs and do other things. We have to remember that we still want to do anything that we do as a service to God. That has sanctity, that has purification to it. Okay? And it should be done with the spirit of reverence and gratitude. So let us free ourselves from karma, rebirth, and the illusory powers that Maya has. Okay? So that is, let us earn the grace of God in this very life. So my father was a huge proponent, and he taught this all the time. That is, don't wait until you die to go to heaven. A lot of people have that concept. We're all waiting for that someday. The someday is not coming. Someday is right now. Okay? It's not going to come at some future point induced by outside forces and stimuli, or suddenly you make a big transformation and suddenly some things happen. It may happen in incremental ways, but he was a big proponent. This is one of his core teachings, is recognize life as the precious gift that it is. Let's try to use it for seeing God, recognizing God, and realizing that God, okay? Anything less, remember this is what he said, anything less than that amounts to foolishly wasting our time, okay? Which is what we all seem to be doing. We're wasting our time in many ways. I said at the outset, this is for advanced students, advanced seekers. This is not for the faint of heart. It's not easy to do, okay? But with practice, it can be done. It doesn't mean you have to give up your entire life to go and sit in a cave somewhere and do all these things. That's not what he ever taught. He taught that whatever it is that you're doing, remember God, okay, all the time, and say that this is for you. I'm doing this service for you. And eventually you'll get to a point where you're constantly remembering God, and everything does in fact become a service. Okay? And so I'm going to read something here I've written down to go here. Why don't I just read a couple of things here, because I cannot quite put it like he can. It's just wonderful because it has a power of its own. Right from the very beginning, chapter 1 right here, page 1. The purpose of life is God realization, to go beyond the pairs of opposites and to firmly establish oneself in the truth. That is the purpose of our existence. So I'm going to skip over and go to page 10 to make this exact point about how life is precious and all that. So here he says, faith, formidable faith, that is the foundation of all success, both in this world and in the other. Destroy the guilt consciousness, by asserting the divinity in you and march on toward the goal, knowing that God is holding your hand. Isn't it beautiful? Just this one thing alone is good enough for meditating. If you really understand that God is holding your hand, have that faith. That's good enough. You don't really need a whole lot more of talking. But I'll read you some more. The power of his words are just something. By commending your soul into the hands of God, you capture the treasure of heaven. By losing your ego consciousness in God, you will gain God consciousness. So be not afraid to sacrifice your life to serve God through humanity. Realizing that God has given you this rare opportunity now, that is this life, this human life that we have. Offer all that you have to Him and win His grace. Once you have His grace, you have everything. The grace of God makes a mute eloquent and enables a lame man to scale the mountains. There's nothing that's impossible for you when you have His grace. Okay? So there are more things here. I'll come back to them a little later. But I hope that you found those powerful because he lived that way. And that's why that kind of power to his words exist. Right? Those people who don't know anything about this, they cannot talk that way with that level of confidence and power behind it. So, continuing on, the fifth one that I've written down is concentrate on the personal aspect of God. Remember, we've talked about in other live stream satsangs that we have the impersonal and attributeless God. Okay? That is to say nirguna and nirakara, where there's no other attribute other than omniscient, omnipresence, almighty, and Sat, Chit and Ananda, right? That is eternal and consciousness itself, and then bliss itself. So those are the attributes of the attributeless that we have given, of the attributeless God, okay? With no form, no name, no gender. We say His because of the avatars. We really should say it, but it sounds odd in English when we say it. But the Upanishads definitely say tat, that. Okay? So whenever I say His here, convert it into that attributeless, nameless, genderless, and causeless entity called Parabrahma. Okay? But what my father has emphasized and taught is concentrate instead on the personal aspect of God. Personal aspect instead of the impersonal or the abstract. Why? Because he himself saw Lord Panduranga at the age of 8. Right? He saw God at the age of 8, and from that point forward, he served God until he was age 63. That's all he did. So that's why he is a huge proponent of bhakti, to a personal God. Okay? I'm going to talk about one other point that he used to make, but I didn't write it down here. Neither is it in this book that I could find. But he used to make this point to me. That is, in many of the satsangs he has said, instead of attaching yourself to family and friends and your way of life and objects and goods and things that you accumulate, instead of attaching yourself to those, turn that same attachment to God instead. If you turn it from here, right, because you know you cannot conquer attachment. You can't conquer wants. It's not that easy. You cannot conquer desires. Take the same set of things and turn it to God. Want God, attach to God, desire for God's darshan. Right? Why is that important? It's because it's not that we want to conquer all attachment. It's not that we want to conquer our mind or individuality. It's none of those things. If you turn the same attention that we have for an iPhone, right, which we are all addicted to, turn it to God, okay? Now you have not only the grace of God, but all your burdens are gone. Okay? So, one of the things he always used to talk about is it's not so much that you have things or don't have things. That's not the point. The point is to turn your mind and feel the presence of God and talk to God. Right? Take all your attachment and turn it towards God Himself. So, why the personal aspect, right? Why that? Instead of sitting in deep meditation and feeling the oneness of you and the universe and God's creation and God Himself, why not do that instead? He was talking about that too. It's not like he ignored it, but he didn't emphasize it because it doesn't apply to most of we family members or family people, right? We have a household, we have kids, we have responsibilities, we have to go get income for working and all that, right? So we don't have the luxury of time to sit and just sit there for 3 hours at a time, undisturbed in meditation. Many of us can't do it even if we had the time. I'm just saying we don't have the mindset to do it. So what is this practice here, right? And it goes back to my grandmother, my father's mother. Okay, it's a practice that she did that I think had an impact on him, and it certainly had an impact on many of us who grew up around her and then him. What is that practice? The practice is you make God yours. Okay? So when I say that this iPhone or this computer or this microphone is mine, so it was not mine always, right? It was in the store somewhere. This wasn't mine. It's only after I paid for it, it came to me. Now my mind says that's mine. Now I love it. It's a beautiful thing. I don't want to get rid of my microphone. I don't want anybody touching it. It's mine. Don't touch my microphone. I'm attached and I'm kind of, possessive about it. Right? So when did that possession start? Why that kind of attachment? Why that kind of love for my stuff? And the fact is, when you think that something is yours, you start your attachment. You start your love for that object, or that person, or that dog, or whatever, right? There are lots of dogs, but our dog is our dog. Right? There are lots of houses, but our house is our house. Nobody should come in. It's our house. We exert full control over it. We put it together how we want. So what is this nature of ours? So what my grandma had figured out is she made God personal, meaning that she used to talk to God. We had a little temple room, if you want to call it that, a puja room. She used to go there and talk to God about daily things, right? My kids are not listening to me, or I had a great day today and this and that happened, right? Or I have so many kids and I hope that you will put food on the table for them tomorrow, right? Any daily problems that she had, she would take it up with God and talk to Him, literally talk like I'm talking right now, loudly, not in her mind and all this. It's a form of prayer, and he used to believe in that very much. So, and that's not an unusual practice in India, where you had Sant Tukaram, Sant Namadev, Sant Purandaradasa, Sant Kanakadasa talk to God. And it did not have to be in some kind of a great song format or anything like that. But they used to literally go to a temple or sit at home in the puja room and just start talking as though God was right there next to them or in front of them. Try that practice, okay? People will consider you as nuts. I'm telling you right now. So start out, going to a private room and talking maybe. But it's a practice where when you feel that you can talk to God and God is listening, Okay, you keep on talking, keep on talking, keep on talking about anything, good or bad, your daily stuff. As though you come home, like I'll tell her, oh, how was your day? We're doing this and that. What are your plans for today? Are you going to grocery shopping? This and that. All the mundane stuff, you can actually talk to God about that. Why? Because God then becomes personal. That's what we want. Because when God becomes personal, you develop an attachment to God, you develop a love, and sooner or later, it's a form of prayer. Sooner or later, those prayers will be answered and you will be shocked. Okay? So that's why the whole notion in Srimad Bhagavatam, whatever I'm doing all throughout the day, I offer at your feet. That's a prayer for every day. Kayena vacha manasendriyarva buddhyatmana va prakriti swabhavat karomi yadyat sakalam parasmai narayanayati samarpayami. Right? I offer all of that. Whatever I've thought, whatever I've done, whatever I've said, all that comes right back to your feet. Okay? And that then comes from the related mantra that we always sing, Tvameva Mata Cha Pita Tvameva. You are really my true mother and father, relative, my true knowledge, my true education, my true wealth, etc. Right? So this is all a related concept. So one of the things that my father taught, as I said, is he focused and asked people to concentrate on a personal aspect of God, Panduranga, Krishna, Rama, Jesus, Moses, whatever it is, okay? Not the impersonal one, because certainly you find that with oneness and all that, there's nothing you can do. You just have to reflect on it, meditate upon it, which is fine, but it's not appropriate for most people because they cannot be effective. Okay, I hope that makes sense. And then a couple of other things here. Serving God was his greatest privilege because, again, he saw God at the age of 8 and his life's purpose. Guru Nanak once said, God always keeps his saints on earth to remind us on how to recognize and realize him meaning God, and to serve him always. This is Guru Nanak, the founder of Sikhism, right? The Sikh religion. So what my father did, as you people know, many of you know, is we kind of lost count, but there are over 15,000 bhajans that he wrote in praise of God. Some of them, many of them are in this book right here. Okay? But this is not the only book. There are probably a dozen more, maybe 2 dozen more books just like this. It's sad to say that a majority of the songs that he wrote, I don't know. I know some, right? Maybe 10, 20, 25%, something like that. So it's really amazing the level of service he did to God. 15,000 or more songs, dozens of books. As you know, we're converting those to ebooks now and putting it on Amazon. Thousands and thousands of talks to tell people about God and to tell people about Bhakti, and over 30 trips around the world, to Europe, to North America, South America, West Indies, and the former USSR he went to, right? And he inspired people with that first-hand experience of God. Okay? So his path was devotional. Why? Because he's a Haridasa. That's why you see Sant Keshavadasji. Das means servant of God. All right? So what made him unique, real quick here, is that he was able to take a point from the Upanishads or Bhagavad Gita or whatever, and take songs of saints such as Purandara Dasa or Tulsi Das or Mirabai or Kabir or whatever, including Jesus' teachings or Moses' teachings, bring those things together to show the universality of the message that God is sending through those saints. It's the same teaching. Okay? Then people, of course, over time, over the centuries, they do whatever they want with that original message and interpret it however they want. But the original teaching has a universal message to it that he showed, and I'll talk about that in a few minutes. And so it doesn't matter whether it was Buddha's teachings or Krishna's teachings or whatever, right? And one of the things he says is, if you're having trouble with all this, right, in life, just remember that we are here for a short time. The soul has taken this body, this life, for a short time. The body is going to be dead soon, and then it'll be the soul will take another body and be reborn, right? So how should we play this life, right? He says, play it like a game, as though you're actors, okay? If you have an actor who is too involved with his character and doesn't remember that he's an actor, that game is over. The actor should always remember who he really is, still get into character to act. Okay? You have to do a good job of acting, of course. But you cannot forget who you really are after the acting is done. That's our problem, is that the actor is always identifying with the character. He says, don't do that. He says, be a good actor, okay? But don't identify yourself with the character that you're acting. Know who you really are, okay? So this knowing will actually change your outlook, your context, your behavior, and what you will get attached to in life or not get attached to. You will not be disturbed by all the things that are happening. You will not get triggered. That's the new word, right? Everybody is triggered all the time, I hear. So you won't get triggered by anything, because you know that this life is temporary and that you're acting. Nothing, all this bad karma, good karma, all these things won't stick to you if you have that in mind as to what your true nature is, who you really are. You won't get bored. You won't be miserable. Okay? You're just playing the game. You're just acting the part. That's all it is. He taught that very often. So understand that the soul has taken this body and the birth due to prarabdha karma. So our life will go through some good and bad things, painful things even, and we will even have failures. But that's all part of the play. That's all part of the drama. So stay outside of that. Do the best you can, but you are not that. You are the witness to that. Okay? So he also inspired us by his main teaching, as I said before, Bhakti, or devotion to God. And ultimate form of Bhakti is complete self-surrender. Okay? Self-surrender. Okay? This in effect is to say, not my will at all, but thy will be done. Okay? So here, let me remind everybody. I think many of you know this song already. It's an English song, so my English pronunciation is what it is. It's Indian English pronunciation. But you know the song that he wrote. And I'll try to find it here. Okay, here it is. For peace there is a way, for joy there is a way, for all the success and the bliss, surrender is the way, self-surrender is the way. So listen to these words. If you want peace, there's a way. For joy, there is a way. For all the success and bliss, surrender is the way. Okay? Now, this is not possible for most of us immediately. Okay? This is for very advanced. You remember, we talked about the 9 modes or 9 phases of bhakti that Srimad Bhagavatam describes. Right? Do you remember those or not? I think most of you may not remember, but there are 9 of them. Okay? And at the very last step, the 9th step, is complete self-surrender. Okay? That is called Atma Nivedana. Right? Alright, so anyway, so that's what this is. It's not for the for the beginner. But we should move towards it, is the point. To unlock all mystery, surrender to God is the key. To unlock all mystery, surrender to God is the key. For all the strength and happiness, surrender is the way. Self-surrender is the way. For peace there is a way. For joy there is a way. For all the success and the bliss, surrender is the way. Self-surrender is the way. And then, offer all unto God. Make thy heart his abode. Offer all unto God. Make thy heart his abode. For all the realization, surrender is the way. Self-surrender is the way. For peace there is a way. For joy there is a way. For all the success and the bliss, surrender is the way. Self-surrender is the way. Essence of all scriptures, essence of all scriptures is to realize the self. Essence of all scriptures is to realize the self. For the attainment of self-surrender is the way. Self-surrender is the way. Self-surrender is the way. For peace there is a way. For joy there is a way. For all the success and the bliss, surrender is the way. Self-surrender is the way. Self-surrender is the way. Sadguru Maharaj Ki Jai. So what does that even mean? I mean, look at it, right? We have to really think. What is he trying to say here? This is all based on very deep context. You need to have context. If you just read it and you go, what does that even mean? Self-surrender is the way. You have to remember that this is the ultimate or the ninth step or the greatest and the last step of the 9 modes of bhakti, okay, of devotion. That's the first context. The second one, he says, is offer all unto God, make thy heart his abode. How difficult is that, right? It's easy to say, but to offer everything to God and make your heart into his abode, okay? And what will that do? For all the realization, surrender is the way. Why? What is that? Why do we have to surrender to get realization, God realization, self-realization? It's because without the grace of God, with all our efforts that we can do, without the grace of God, we cannot reach that level. We cannot get God realization without the grace of God. It is said right there in the Bhagavad Gita that unless you completely surrender to me, you will never know me. Okay? So that's what this is. So as I said, there's a lot of context here, right? So what does he mean when he says to unlock all mystery, surrender to God is the key? That's self-explanatory. For all the strength and happiness, surrender is the way. So I'm going to jump to his book now in a minute to try to give you some context as to where he is coming from on this. Okay? 1 minute. Let me find it. Okay, so here maybe this is the one. Okay, I'll read you these two paragraphs here. A child of God need not worry. God is taking care of this whole world and many worlds. God is a perfect God. God is of perfect consciousness. He has not created you and me without a purpose. He has a perfect plan, and according to that, his will alone will be done. So then I must attune my will to his will. To one who cares for endless universes, I will not be a burden. He is the protector. He is the preserver. His will alone be done. His will alone be done and will be done. To surrender is my job. To offer myself to Him is what my beloved God expects from me, and let me do the duty right now and be free from cares and anxieties, fears and problems. So this next paragraph I've highlighted, it's under the title of The Efficacy of Prayer. The work we do becomes very effective when we strongly feel the immediate presence of God watching our actions. It's not just imagination that God is omnipresent. Okay, this is key. This is absolutely key. It's not just imagination that God is omnipresent. Do not fail in your daily prayers, both morning and evening. One who has begun the day with a heartfelt prayer. You have to underline the word heartfelt. Don't give it lip service, otherwise you're wasting your time. One who has begun the day with a heartfelt prayer shall certainly have a very peaceful day throughout. If unobserved thoughts or actions creep into the subconscious due to contact with the evolutes of nature, during the evening prayer and meditation, root out those thoughts and never allow them to stay in the mind. One who has kept his account clear, the account of merit and sin, by cleansing his sinful propensities every day, remains peaceful and strong enough to meet the challenges of life with equanimity. He indeed is capable of distributing his peace and love to each and every one. So you can see when you say all the success and the bliss, surrender is the way, what he's talking about is not just spiritual success, right? He's talking about if you allow God to operate, then you will have success. Because we already know most of the things are out of our control, right? So given that knowledge, why would you want to keep on struggling through everything ourselves, right? Why not let God operate? So then the next couple of points I've written down. Santji inspired us all, as I said before, Bhakti and all. Now here, he taught us through example, teaching and how to practice Bhakti. So there's a song of his that we always sing in India. It's a Kannada song. Our Mandali in India sings this song. This is the very first song they sing. Mudadi bhajisuvevu deva devane hridaya kamala dolu pavanane mudadi bhajisuvevu deva devane. What that means is we praise you. Bhaj means praise, okay, just like bhajan. So with all our heart, we praise you, O Lord, right? Please come and make yourself known and present in our heart, right? And then he goes on. This is talking about how to practice devotion. He's giving us the thoughts and prayers, right? So and actions here. So let me sing. Kangalu ninnaya murtiya kanali, kivigalu ninnaya kirtiya kelali, jivhayu ninnaya namava helali, karagaleರಡು ನಿನ್ನ ಪೂಜಿಸಲಿ ಹರಿ ಮುದದಿ ಭಜಿಸುವೆವು ದೇವದೇವನೇ. So he's saying to God, right? Let my eyes only see your form, right? Only see your holy presence, which we've been talking about all along, right? Let my ears only hear your glories. Okay? How does that happen? How do you only hear God's glories? You have to go to satsangs. You have to go to the presence of holy people who are constantly talking about the greatness of God. Okay? So, kivigalu ninnaya kirtiya kela. Let us hear about the glories of God. Right? ಜಿಹ್ವೆಯು ನಿನ್ನಯ ನಾಮವ ಹೇಳಲಿ. So may my tongue constantly sing your holy name. ಕರಗಳೆರಡು ನಿನ್ನ ಪೂಜಿಸಲಿ ಹರಿ. May both of my hands be engaged in your worship of your puja, right? ಪಾದದ್ವಯವು ತೀರ್ಥಯಾತ್ರೆಯ ಮಾಡಲಿ. So may my feet go to holy pilgrimages, right? Walk to them, walk to your holy temples where your presence can be felt. ಪಾದದ್ವಯವು ತೀರ್ಥಯಾತ್ರೆಯ ಮಾಡಲಿ. ಸಾಧು ಸಜ್ಜನರಿಗೆ ಶಿರವು ಮಣಿಯಲಿ. ಮೋದದಿ ಕರತಾಡನದಿ ಭಜನೆಗೈದು ಬಾದರಾಯಣನುತ ದೇಹವೇ ಬೀಳಲಿ. This is in Kannada language, so I'm going to translate it. So let both my feet take the effort, take the initiative to go to your holy temples where your presence can be felt. Go on pilgrimages, right? ಸಾಧು ಸಜ್ಜನರಿಗೆ ಶಿರವು ಮಣಿಯಲಿ. May I bow down, may my head bow down to the holy masters that may be there in those pilgrimage centers. That's where they tend to be, where the presence of God can be more easily felt because of all the pujas and all the emotions and devotion coming to that temple or a few temples like that. So may my head humbly bow down to those sadhus, right? ಮೋದದಿ ಕರತಾಡನದಿ ಭಜನೆಗೈದು. Let me gloriously dance and sing and clap to your holy name and to your bhajans. Okay? ಬಾದರಾಯಣನುತ ದೇಹವೇ ಬೀಳಲಿ. So in that consciousness, okay, that's out of body consciousness, right? May my body fall at your feet in praise of you. That's what it says. And then last stanza, ದಾಸನಾಗುವ ಭಾಗ್ಯ ಕರುಣಿಸು ದೇವನೇ. So God, give me the greatest gift of all, okay, greatest privilege of all, okay, of being your servant. ದಾಸನಾಗುವ ಭಾಗ್ಯ ಕರುಣಿಸು ದೇವನೇ. ದಾಸದಾಸರ ಸೇವೆ ದೊರೆಯಲಿ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ. God also give me the privilege of serving your least of your servants. Okay, so dasas, dasa. So give me that privilege. Okay, that's where I'm the happiest. ದಾಸದಾಸರ ಸೇವೆ ದೊರೆಯಲಿ ಸ್ವಾಮಿ. ಭಾಸುರಾಂಗತವ ಕೋಟಿ ಸೂರ್ಯ ಪ್ರಭ. ಹಾಸವದನ ತೋರೋ ದಾಸ ಕೇಶವನುತ. So Bhasurangatava Koti Surya Samaprabha, oh brilliant one, who is equivalent to millions of suns. That's how brilliant you are, right? Bhasurangatava Koti Surya Prabha, right? Hasavadana, the smiling face of Panduranga, right? Hasavadana Toro, show me that smiling, compassionate, graceful face. Okay, oh one who is worshipped by Sant Keshavadas. That's what it means. Okay, isn't it beautiful? So he's giving us the practice of how to go about this whole devotional track. That's what this is. So that's why I thought I would sing that for you and translate it. So this is, he practiced this. He's just not saying all these things for everybody else to follow and he's having a good time in a 5-star hotel or anything like that. He practiced this, right? So through his example, he taught us all these things. So now, at this point, I wanted to just finish up maybe with one other thought that's here. Let me see. I'll read this point, this paragraph, two paragraphs here really, and then we can finish up here. So he says, Christ said, "He who forsakes anything for my sake shall receive again 100-fold." It's the law that emptiness shall be filled. When we empty our ego, our heart is filled with the love and light of God. As long as the ego is firmly rooted in our heart, so long impurity remains. It is in humbling our ego that we attain purity. In purity manifests divinity. So in other words, without purity, there's no divinity, right? As long as there's ego, there's no purity. As long as there's no purity, there's no divinity. Okay? That is the source of all strength. And with this strength of God, you can accomplish everything. To acquire this state, go on offering your thoughts and actions to God mentally. Feel that He is doing everything through you. Feel His presence in everything you do. And this thought inspires you. Do not allow this inspiration to fritter away through worldly gossip. Okay? And I'm going to just touch on what that worldly gossip is. Worldly gossip is those who go on confusing everybody with show me this proof and show me that proof and this philosophical thing, this is science, this, that. Those are the people who are debating without knowing anything beyond what their intellect and senses will allow. So he's saying here, do not allow this inspiration that you have to fritter away through worldly gossip. Lord Krishna teaches Arjuna, his disciple, O Arjuna, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever oblations you pour into the fire, whatever you give in charity, whatever austerity you perform, dedicate all those actions unto me and be free. Mentally relegating all our actions to God, our minds become free from worry about their results. Gradually, we feel the divine will working in us, and more an individual will less and less. So divine will more and more, individual will less and less, until finally we become the chosen instruments of God. So these are teachings that he emphasized. Okay. Let me also talk about what he didn't emphasize. He knew a lot, okay, and he chose his path carefully. Right? Because there are all kinds of teachings out there, all kinds of people teaching all sorts of things. Some more advanced, some less advanced, etc. Right? Let me tell you what he did not emphasize. He taught them because, as a matter of practical matter, if somebody calls him into a yoga center and they give him a subject, talk about Katha Upanishad, he'll talk about Katha Upanishad. Or they say, do a comparison between Bible and Bhagavad Gita, he will do that. Right? Or somebody says, can you talk about chakras? He will do that. But in his life, that's not what he emphasized. Right? What he emphasized is bhakti, as I said before. Okay? Why is that? Upanishadic teachings, which we've been doing in live streams and so on, Upanishad teachings tell us about the Atma, the internal Atma that we have, the soul. Soul is a poor word for it, but I'll use it now. Atma and Paramatma. That's their focus. Atma, Paramatma. Right? And whether they are different or they're one. They declare that it is one. Okay, but he talked about it in extreme detail and with a lot of power behind it. But he understood that we don't have the time and we don't have the aptitude, the patience, the temperament, etc., to actually practice something like that in our daily life as family people. So it's more for somebody who is very advanced and is ready to give up everything, and those tend to be monks, right, or brahmacharis. So he talked about them, but he didn't really emphasize them for our daily practice, right? Whereas with bhakti, we increasingly remember God, we increasingly offer everything to God, we increasingly feel the presence of God. Ultimately, as he just said, when you do that and you have that sense of God is operating through me you'll find that you are an instrument of God. So that's his path. He did not emphasize yogic practices, be it Hatha Yoga or the full-on Ashtanga Yoga, Patanjali's Ashtanga Yoga. He didn't emphasize those. He talked about them, right, wherever he was called to talk about them, but he didn't emphasize that you have to do Yama, Niyama, Pratyahara and the like, right? And there are various derivatives or variations of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. That is, you have Kriya Yoga on this side, you have Kundalini Yoga that's closely related, and all sorts of yogas, right? You have Pranayama that people do, fire breathing, varieties of Pranayamas that people do, right? Very heavy breathing or holding your breath for a long time and all these things. What's the purpose of all that? Okay, most people will not reach Samadhi. Let me tell you very clearly. Okay, because with Patanjali Yoga Sutras, the ultimate is to reach Samadhi. That is oneness. You go all the way up, right? Even through chakra practices, you go all the way up to here and then to here to reach the oneness. Most people won't make it because they get stuck and tempted by different supernatural powers that they end up getting with Muladhara Chakra and so on. So as these supernatural powers grow, your ego grows. You become even more insufferable with that big ego now that you now have, right? Which means that you are not going to reach the goal of muting karma and rebirth, muting the effects of Maya. None of that. There is no transformation, fundamental transformation that you have to reach that goal. I hope that's clear. That is, most people who sit and do meditation, they get to a point, okay? But it's not entirely transformative because they have not gone to a different level. So many of the people will get some ability to levitate or to enter into somebody else's body or thoughts or dreams or whatever have you, and they become very arrogant, very egotistic because they have the powers, okay? But have they conquered Maya? Have they conquered karma and rebirth? Are they happier? No. These are basically what they've reached is higher levels of consciousness. Let's call it alternate state of consciousness, okay? That can be induced with drugs, as we all know. Any drug. You can take Benadryl, I have a different state of consciousness. You can take alcohol, you have a different state of consciousness. What's the difference? There isn't any. You come back and you're the same old bastard, as I've always said. Spirituality is not about supernatural powers. My father always said that. It's not about gaining this power and that power and that power. That's not the point. Have you earned the grace of God to either realize the oneness, or have you seen God even in your dreams in a personal way? Do you feel the presence of God? Is your ego reduced? Right? Those are what the goals are. So he made sure that he taught that. That's why many of the yogic practices he doesn't teach, because many people will never be able to reach the oneness state, the samadhi state. They fall short of that. They are in different planes of consciousness. I'm showing the body because that's where the chakras are. They're stuck somewhere, but they become horrible people. They become very arrogant. They become very controlling because it's like giving a gun to a monkey. He used to say that all the time, right? Very powerful gun to a monkey and ask it to say behave. It doesn't have the culture and the control to behave. So it'll just go on shooting until the bullets are out. And a lot of these yogic powers are exactly that. The people who are practicing these things and they have certain supernatural powers, they don't have the culture and the maturity, spiritual maturity behind it to use it for the right things, or never to use it for that matter, right? So he felt that most of these people will fall short. So that's why he preached the Bhakti Yoga, that is to say, talk to God, surrender to God, make sure you feel God's presence, make sure that God is in everything that you're doing, serve God. Why? Because it purifies you. Ultimately, it earns you the grace of God. And once you have the grace of God, game is over. You're done. Why? Because you will have that vision of God. You don't have to go through all these yogic practices. This is what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, that bhakti is the simplest and most direct way. You try to go through jnana that's full of pitfalls. Okay, that's what he taught. So, I guess I'll end it here.